Matt and Buffy Payne are a couple driven by purpose. Through their nonprofit, Outer Circle Foundation, and faith-based organizations like Few and Dudes, their mission is clear: to spark positive change, empower others, and build a better world, one connection at a time. She is Chick. He is Dude. Welcome to the Chick and Dude Stuff podcast.
All right, hey everyone. Welcome to Chick and Dude Stuff. Today you only got Dude. Chick had another call, so she's out doing what Chick does. Patrick, just so you're aware, our friends have called us Chick and Dude forever, and it just kind of stuck. And that's how we are known, and that's where the name of everything came in for us. And then my wife just turned that into kind of a little branding, and our podcast, Chick and Dude Stuff, is anything goes. And I should preface that with faith, jobs, law enforcement, military, family, travel, kids, all of that kind of stuff. So, Patrick Faulkner, thanks for coming. Welcome to the show. Why don't I start with just giving you the opportunity to let everybody know who you are and what you're doing?
All right. So, my name is Patrick. I'll try to keep this as the Reader's Digest version for the sake of time. So I currently live in the Metro Atlanta area, US Veteran out of the Air Force in the 90s. I spent almost 16 years after the Air Force in law enforcement, 4 different agencies across the Atlanta metro area. 2014, I tore my rotator cuff off duty. So that sort of ended my law enforcement career. And since then, I have been still trying to figure out who Patrick is supposed to be, that since I'm no longer Sergeant Faulkner. So that's about as concise as I can get it. How's that, Matt?
Awesome. Let's start. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Born in Pensacola. Then moved to Knoxville in elementary school, and then to Baltimore, which is why I sound funny. From Knoxville to Baltimore as a 10th grader, and I used to have this really thick East Tennessee hillbilly accent. I mean, it was thick, but out of self-preservation, moving to the armpit of America up in Baltimore, my voice changed. So I graduated high school out of Baltimore, and then spent a year and a half trying college. I just was not a college student at the time. So I had moved in with my grandfather my sophomore year of college after my grandmother passed away, and it took about 6 months of listening to his romantic stories of the Second World War, being deployed to England as an avionics mechanic, or aviation mechanic, for me to join the Air Force. So I was stationed at Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia. If you're familiar, don't go. And then when I got out in 1999, I made the trip to Metro Atlanta because there were more job opportunities at that time, obviously in a metro area versus South Georgia. So
are you a UT fan, Dogs fan, follow college football at all?
Only Saturday ball. I don't watch Sunday ball. And all of my family is from Birmingham. So I'm a big Roll Tide fan.
All right. Nothing wrong with that.
Enjoyed Pavia getting to eat some crow this last weekend.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Elizabethton, Tennessee, so just up the street, about an hour and a half from Knoxville. So didn't go to school in UT, but from a football fan, I still follow UT, even though they've been miserable of late. They're not doing bad this year.
Hey, it is always darkest before. I mean, I remember when Bama sucked in the late 90s through the early 2000s. I mean, it was rough being I have always lived in enemy territory, but in middle school and freshman year of high school, being in Knoxville and a Bama fan, that was rough.
Yeah. 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 Then were you Baltimore City proper, like downtown Baltimore?
Howard County. So Ellicott City.
Yep. Okay. My uncle lives in Glen Burnie, so we do a lot of time up there. And then we partner with James Lynch, who has a practice up kind of just outside Glen Burnie for the stellate ganglion block for PTSD treatments and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So grandfather, Air Force, which kind of prompted you to go in. Did you want to follow his footsteps in avionics, or did it just kind of suit you when you went in? Well, what was that like?
Yeah, so that's a very kind of a loaded question. So every male adult in my family dating back, story says, to the Civil War, every generation has served. So it was my turn to sort of answer the call. My father served in the Army National Guard during Vietnam. My uncle was in the Air Force during the Korea War. Both my grandfathers were in the Second World War as aviation mechanics in some fashion. So I had all the male influencers in my life, tell me what military was going to be like, and sort of what I could expect from basic training. So I actually went to all the recruiters and interviewed them all. And I didn't really want to be in the Army. Just didn't seem like it was what I wanted to do, catch bullets. But I did go and interview. I wasn't impressed with the Army recruiter. The Marine recruiter was just way too intense for a 19-year-old. The Navy guy tried to tell me they had more planes than the Air Force. So I knew he was lying to me right off the bat. And the Air Force guy gave me this encyclopedia. I mean, it was a massive book, right? And he said, here, before we talk, take this book home, bring it back in a couple of days. See if there's anything here you want to do. So all of the males in the family said, find a job you can do when you get out, because the likelihood of you being a lifer is not very high. So I started flipping this career book, and I landed on the F-16 in the maintenance world, and I found avionics and attack control systems. I was like, dude, that sounds awesome. That's what I want to do. Because they had a base, Eglin Air Force Base, because I was, it's right outside of Pensacola. And there was also Tyndall Field and another one I can't remember off the top of my head, all in the Panhandle, which was home. So I was like, you know what, that's close to Birmingham, where my family is. There's another one in South Georgia that might work. So I went back to the recruiter and said, yeah, we don't have that job open for you, but hey, we do have this one as a combat controller. Are you interested in that? And I say, absolutely not. Nope. Nope. I don't. So I went home. 2 days later, he called me and it's like, we got an opening. It's not until February. This was November. But we can put you in the delayed enlistment program. I was like, cool. So went to MEPS, actually tested very high, got the job, and went off to boot camp.
It's so funny listening to your story. It almost mirrors mine. So my dad was killed in Vietnam when I was 2 months old, and he was in the Army, and come from a long list of family that served, and all of them were either Army National Guard, or the reserves, but all Army. And when I graduated high school, I did exactly the same thing. Went to all the recruiters, and the first one I did was I hit the Army. Just didn't feel right. Navy, had no desire to be on a boat. Marines, like you, over the top, kind of whatever, and walked into the Air Force recruiter. And I've always had medicine as something that was of very big interest, and found out about pararescue. But he gave me a guaranteed job as a combat controller and go off to basic training, um, getting my contract change in basic training to be a pararescueman after doing the pass test and all that. Did they still do in basic training? So I went in 85 to 95, I got out. And when I went in, they pulled you aside in basic and said, here's a B-52 tail gunner, here's a SEER instructor, here's a pararescueman, and there was one other. And those jobs you could volunteer for, regardless of what you went in as. You could did they still do that when you went in?
Yeah, there were two options: pararescue and combat control. Those were the only two, and there was a sign-on bonus.
Oh, those were the only two.
Yeah, there was a sign-on bonus if you did them.
Yep. So I was sitting in the HR place, and the woman came over and goes, "So are you the pararescue guy?" I said, "I'm trying to be." She goes, "Did anybody talk to you yet?" I said, "No." She goes, "You're not being a pararescue guy. Combat control's understaffed, pararescue's overstaffed. Go away." So I became a controller, and I ended up being stationed at Herbert Field, right next to you. So,
oh, yeah, okay.
yeah. So you go to Moody, and F-16's there. Is that what you ended up working on?
Yes. Yeah. I was F-16 avionics and the attack control systems. So my job was to ensure when the pilot hit the trigger, the fire button, the pickles went in the pickle jar. So it's a really fancy way of saying I took broken computers out, put working computers in, checked them, and sent them off.
And was it what you thought it was going to be? Did you have fun?
I loved the first 2 years. It was fantastic. I was first day of basic training was my 20th birthday. I flew under the radar. Nobody figured it out. It was fantastic. But when I got to Moody, I was the first new airman in 3 years in my unit. So I got all of the junk details, all of the new guy. I didn't call it hazing, career or confidence building, or all the things. But I worked second shift, so we went in at 3:00, and on Fridays, we were practicing most of the first 2 years air-to-air combat missions. So they were done flying at noon. So we'd come in at 3. Daywatch was still fixing jets, and we never had to check out tools. We were sent home. So by the time Daywatch was finished checking in all their tools and leaving, we were already 2 beers in every Friday for the first 2 years. It was fantastic. The second 2 years, we worked 18 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah. So you decide to get out. You go up into Atlanta, better job market. What was the transition like for you? What happened during that time?
There was no transition. They didn't give a rat's rear end if you there was no incentives to hire a veteran. They're like, great, cool. You learned how to drink beer on base versus in college. Good for you. I was applying for all kinds of avionics positions. You would think in Metro Atlanta, home of Delta, Hartsfield Jackson, it'd be umpteen opportunities. Now I was being told I was too military specific and overqualified for everything that I applied for. So at the ripe old age of 24 in 1999, I had 3 options: garbageman, fireman, or policeman. And well, garbage stinks. I just didn't see myself riding a truck, although hindsight, they make pretty good money. Might have been a good idea. Firemen run into burning buildings on purpose. To me, that's insane, right? So not for me. And law enforcement is, where else can you drive fast, carry a gun, and still help people and get paid for it? So that's where I landed. 16 years, 4 different agencies. I did everything you can do in polyester and Kevlar, but ride a horse or ride a motorcycle. So great career.
So when did you leave law enforcement? What year?
Gwinnett PD. I was there for just over 6 years. I had been promoted to detective. About 4 years in, I worked in the burglar unit and the special victims unit, about a little over a year each, and then decided to go back to patrol for my last year. And I had a lieutenant who had a side job where he worked anti-espionage for big name companies like Coke and Delta, and so he'd go in and sweep boardrooms and all that. And he's like, Patrick, you were in the Air Force, right? You worked on electronics. So you ever thought about starting a video surveillance company, CCTV company? And I was like, nope, never thought of it. Never crossed my mind. He's like, well, I get asked all the time, but I can't play both sides of the field in this. I need somebody to hand these potential job offers over to. So why don't I help you build a business? And I was like, LT, sounds great to me. I don't have to work bars on weekends and get in fights and work extra duty and all that. Sure. Yeah. So about a year in, I was making as much doing that business part-time as I was full-time employment at Gwinnett. So I pulled the trigger, took the leap of faith. That was 2006. By the end of 2007, the market had crashed, the bubble burst. It was not a great time to try to start a niche business, especially one that required disposable income. People were losing their jobs and their houses. So I got pushed back into law enforcement. And I went to work for the mass metropolis of Houston, Georgia. I don't know if you know anything about Houston. It was a 2.5 mile city. That's it. 2.5 miles wide. There were 7 officers that included the chief, the assistant chief, who was also the detective, a patrol lieutenant, and then 4 officers. And it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Man, it was Mayberry 2007. It was probably the most fun I ever had. I was the only one wearing my uniform on my shift because I worked the overnight shift, so 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I had free reign to make the decisions I needed to make. The chief and I would review them in the morning when he came in. Everything. I mean, it was the best. 2009, the city could no longer afford the PD, so it had to turn over the enforcement action to the sheriff. And I didn't want to wear brown. And in Georgia, for those that aren't in Georgia, you had blue or brown. And I just didn't want to work in a jail. I didn't want to be a key turner, a babysitter. So I went to work for another agency, and I'll leave that one off. It was not a great place. I was there a year and a day. My sergeant got his stripes because he built a deck on the chief's house. Give you kind of an idea of the good old boy system there. It was a miserable place. It was high speed. The chief loved to spend money on gadgets and toys and things, but it was just a bad culture. Thankfully, I got recruited to go start a police department at a college that was transitioning from a public safety to a police department. And man, who turns down an opportunity to have the opportunity to start a police department, right? To be a founding member. So I went to go work for Georgia Gwinnett College Police Department. 6 months into that, I got promoted to sergeant. 6 months after that, I got a dog, narcotics detection dog. She was fantastic. 43-pound female chocolate lab. She was a phenomenal dog. That was the best assignment I ever had. And then 4 years into that is when I tore my rotator cuff, and that ended that.
So when you look back, right, at your police career, I know you're right behind you. You run a kind of a podcast and talk about, kind of the funny things that have taken place. And, it's so interesting, again, your story, I left, I got medically retired in 95, started with customs in 96, road cop in 98, a detective in 2001, and then ultimately retired as chief of police in 2018. So, and did all kinds of stuff in between there. But, and everybody, you talk to every cop, kind of a weird sense of humor, look at, calls in a different way than most of the people. And it's not to belittle a call or make anything else. I think it's one of the coping mechanisms we have to just deal with everything we see on a day in and day out basis. And so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is absolutely a coping mechanism. I mean, the dark humor, the sarcasm, it's a language that we speak. I think most first responders learn how to speak it very quickly. Otherwise, it's already very difficult to download the things that we see, the things that we experience. It's a very dark industry. It's a very dark world. We see the worst of the worst, whether it's accidental or it's on purpose. It still happens, and we're the ones that show up first to deal with it. There's I saw a stat not long ago. It's been repeated a lot. The average individual encounters 2 to 3 major traumatic instances in their lifetime. First responders, about 700 in a 20-year career. So it's very difficult for us to download and process and get. So if we don't make light of it, if we aren't able to laugh at it or find a way to what I call relieve that pressure that's building, we'll implode. And that's unfortunately within our career field. Divorce is high, domestic violence is high, alcoholism is high, drug addiction is high, and it's because we haven't learned the best way to download all of that garbage that we're exposed to. And that's what my podcast is about. It's about finding the funny stories that happen so that we can remember we can't have fun at work. We can also relieve some of that built up pressure, and have a place to share those stories, because it's the stuff Hollywood can't make up. They would pay somebody millions of dollars to come up with this stuff, because it's real life, and real life is stranger than fiction. So, that's my thoughts on it. I am no doctor. I have no medical training whatsoever. It's just my personal experience with me, my shift mates, and then some of the people in the peer counseling that I'm involved in, both receiving and providing.
And, another part of that is we had the opportunity to go to DC, and we met with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Senator Ossoff, and Senator Warnock. And, one of the things that I presented, and it's really difficult to find stats on this, but everything that I've come up with, I estimate about 30% of our first responders are either veterans or active in the Guard and Reserve. So those people, right, needed the mental health for different things that they've done for the last 20 years over on the military side. And now you're in a career field, regardless of what your first responder job is, that they don't talk about anything. Mental health is not there's departments that do it well, and there's departments that don't do it well. And then there's departments that say there is no problem, and they don't do anything at all. And even those that say they do it well, from talking to the people out on doing the jobs, they're not, it can be done better, right? And we'll stop there. But, the military has done an okay job at doing PTSD stuff and getting veterans help. And there's a lot of organizations out there. And one of the things that, I would love to have a conversation with the VA is, how do you parlay that over into the first responder world and help them break the stigma? You're not broken. It's not a mental illness. To me, it's a workplace injury, right? When you hired me, you made sure that I was of sound body, mind, and spirit, to have the badge, the gun, the fire hose, the keys to the ambulance, the whatever it is. And now over the course of X years, I'm having some issues. It's not like I contracted this mental illness. It is, from my perspective, part of the job. And, so yeah, enough of the soapbox, but let's hear some of the stories. Let's hear some of the funny ones.
Oh gosh, put me on the spot. So my stories, or share some that were shared with me.
Yep. Yeah.
All this areas. My son is 28, and in the Army National Guard himself. But every time we get together, he's like, "Dad, you remember the story you told me? Do you remember this? Tell me this one again." And he's a great prompt. So it's like, talking with Chat GPT, right? You got to have the right prompt to trigger things. But there are so many stories out there that are both funny and outrageous. So I'll tell you one that was probably the strangest call that I ever took from a property crimes perspective. Okay, we've all taken the burglary, the entering auto, the criminal trespassing, all those, right? So I got dispatched to Briscoe Field shortly after 9/11. So this was 2005, I guess, 2006. To a stolen recovered jet. A $7 million jet was stolen out of Jacksonville by a kid who his father ran one of the avionics companies at Briscoe Field, and he was at the clubs in Jacksonville, wasn't ready for the party to be over, so he's like, "Hey, y'all want to take my jet? Let's go for a flight." So, it's not like they have specialized keys, right? You just know what buttons to push to fire up the engine and all that. So yeah, he takes a joyride in a $7 million Learjet, comes in overnight, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, lands it and parks it in the back 40, hoping nobody will notice. And, of course the grounds crew are like, "Wait, that tail number doesn't belong here." So I think he is still serving federal time. I mean, can you imagine the alphabet soup interest? A stolen jet finding its way to one of the training grounds from the 9/11 attacks in a metro Atlanta. Oh, and I was the reporting office. Like, I was the one having to deal with all these alphabets. I mean, that was a crazy call. It was my entire shift. There's umpteen number of drunk. Oh, so working a bar, working a bar as a part-time security, right? Wild Bill's here in Metro Atlanta over at Gwinnett Place Mall. It used to be a Circuit City. They converted it to a honky tonk, a huge country western bar. I was working security there, and I'm a small guy. I'm 5'6", 5'6.5", wearing my boots first thing in the morning, right? So I'm not a big officer. I had more use of force reports than most guys working these security gigs because the drunk guys like to try to take the shortcut. Well, I was involved in 3 riots in my career. One of them was at Wild Bill's. It was family night. So it was anyone over 16. Alcohol was 21 and up only, but anyone over 16 could get in. And the bouncers did not like the fact that somebody had a baseball cap on backwards. You could wear a baseball cap, but it had to be on the right way, or a cowboy hat. That was it. Those were your 2 choices. If you had your baseball cap backwards, they'd tell you turn it around 3 times and they'd ask you out. Well, one guy didn't enjoy being told the 4th time, and he pushed one of the bouncers. The bouncers pushed him back, knocked over a table. Of course, it was like a scene from a Clint Eastwood fistful dollar bar. I mean, just the table got turned over. Somebody got knocked over. Beer got knocked over. So now somebody's girl got pushed. So that guy is now fighting somebody. I mean, it turned into a melee. And I was one of 2 detectives, so there was only 2 unmarked cars working the security for this on the outside. And getting in, I ran in. While I was fighting somebody came over my back and was pushing my shoulder mic, and of course, it only sounded like this, and that immediately triggered the officer needs help alert. Every swinging stick and a badge from Metro Atlanta was on the way to Wild Bill's. DeKalb County, Fulton County, City of Duluth, Snellville. Yeah, I mean, you name it, they were coming. Hall County, Jackson County. I mean, everybody was coming. And it took forever to clear this thing up. There was stomp and drag riot shields with the PR-24. I mean, lumber was being laid on. Now, there were kids here, 16-year-olds. There were family members here, moms and dads with their kids. Pepper spray the sheriff's department showed up with their riot pepper spray and just blowing blankets of pepper spray over the top of us. I mean, all of this happened. One arrest was made. No use of force report. It was just too much information. There was no way to report all. So one arrest for disorderly conduct for somebody refusing to comply when we actually got hands on one person, because it was just like a push. It was crazy. But the fact that there was only one arrest report and no use of force report outside of OC was deployed by the sheriff's department. And that was crazy. I mean, if I had more time and maybe 2 fingers of bourbons, I could come up with some funnier ones. I hope I'm not disappointing your people here.
No. It's funny. When I was a street cop, our township was 56 square miles, and I could go from chasing a cow off the road on one call to a guy with a gun in the projects on the next call, and just everything in between, right? And everything. And up in New Jersey at the time, and we had 26 deer per acre in New Jersey during this time. And we had a woman in town who was a deer advocate, let's call it that. She came into our chief one day and said, "Chief, I'd like you to help protect the deer." He goes, "Okay, what would you like us to do?" She goes, "I want you to tranquilize every deer and put road guard vests on them." And so Chief says, "Sorry, you're out." So off she goes. She comes back about, 6-9 months later and goes, "Chief, I'd like you to protect the deer." He goes, "Okay, what would you like to do this time?" She goes, "I'd like you to reduce the speed limit in town to 15 miles an hour in every street, everywhere, across the board." He goes, "Yep, we're not going to do that. Go away." So she ended up, the term deer in the headlights, right? Headlights, you hit a deer and it just pauses. She put had this green metal pole, and on it, she put a reflector that was angled. So it would take your headlights and shine them into the woods, and then it would catch the deer and the deer would stop. And she presented this to Rutgers. Rutgers had a huge school of environment and all kinds of wildlife and all kinds of things. They did a huge study on it, and the state ended up buying that from her and deploying it on every road within the state.
Hey, listen, if at first you don't succeed, that is American ingenuity at its best. That is fantastic. Good for her.
So what's up now? What are you doing? I know you have a company. I know you help entrepreneurs. Did you ever go back into the CCTV world, or was that just a short-lived kind of endeavor?
It was short-lived. So the technology just changes so fast. I was out of it for almost 10 years. It was too much to try to keep up with, and trying to restart, and I just didn't have the capital, really, or the runway mentally to do that. So instead, I decided to try to reinvent the wheel multiple times because that's easier, you know. Um, I've started and closed or sold 7 businesses now, each one in some better form than the other. One that's successful now, and what I'm doing now, it has started off as me writing an ebook to help veterans start their own business, legally create a business. Because I had done it so many times before that I'd had friends that were veterans or about to get out separating that were like, hey, I want to start a business, but I don't know how to do it. Patrick, I know you've done it a couple times. How do I do this? Right. And they don't want to pay LegalZoom. They want to do it on their own because that's what we do. We're problem solvers. Right. So um, I just jotted a couple notes down, and then I had a business mentor is like, dude, you need to put some fluff behind that, put some adjectives and some colored words and things like that to make it read better, and make an ebook and sell it. So my current company started off that way. I wrote an ebook series on how to start your own business legally, form it, not 10x it, not how to, improve your sales. No, just take the cocktail napkin doodle while you and your buddies were bellied up at the bar talking about it, to legally forming it in your state. And then that sort of transformed into me helping those same people write content for their social media. And then it developed into me creating digital assets for them to promote their business in their social media. And now what I'm doing is helping them create the processes, basically like a fractional COO, helping them create the processes that they need to ensure that they're set up for success, SOPs, policies and procedures, and all those kinds of things from a business standpoint, from all of the business lessons that I learned the hard way, to ensure that you aren't trying to reinvent the wheel, because you need to do what you're good at, and that's the vision. And that's what a lot of business owners are, the founders. They're the visionaries. They don't like getting down into the weeds and having to deal with the mundane part of writing an operating procedure on, how do we hire somebody new? How do we onboard a new client? They don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. So that's what I do, is I come in and I help them with that.
Awesome. And any veteran transfer, do you work in specific industries, or is it just kind of fair game if they're a veteran and they're looking to open a business?
I am partial to veterans just because that's our family, right? But I'm not. It's not just that niched down. I'll help any founder and almost any industry. I got to kind of have an idea, and I also need to sort of align with the business itself, right? So I'm not gonna be helping a degenerate in a degenerate career field create degenerative processes. Yeah.
Morally, from the standpoint of it fits with where I am as a human and my outlook on life. Yeah, we get that.
Yes. Yeah. It has to align with me. Yeah.
How do they get you? How would somebody reach out? What would they do?
The easiest way is to, you can jump on LinkedIn and just type my name in. It's my full name, Charles Patrick Faulkner. And then I do that on purpose. And a lot of people are like, why do you go by Patrick? And that's just, all the firstborn sons in my family get the first name Charles, right? So we all go by our middle name. So Christmas and family reunions aren't so difficult and confusing. But I put it in LinkedIn because that helps me determine who the spam people are. So if I get a message that says, hey, Charles, you don't know me, I can probably just delete this and not even have to read it. But just, go to LinkedIn, Charles Patrick Faulkner. You'll find me. It's easy. If you want to go to the website, it's FE Group, Faulkner Endeavor Group, fegroup.io. And that's the other way to get a hold of me. If you want to go to the Knock and Talk show because you have funny stories and you're in the military or first responder field, just go to Google and type in the Knock and Talk show. Look for this logo, because there was another one that came out about the same time I did. I don't think they're still operating. Lovely couple. It was a husband and wife couple out of Ohio. Great couple. I don't think they're still doing it though. So just look for this logo and you'll find me.
Cool. And when you look at your military, you look at your law enforcement, and somebody, give a tidbit or two to that entrepreneur who could be watching this from the standpoint of, I wish I knew then, right? I mean, we've all learned over time, and what would you tell them?
Find a coach, right? When you're in the military, you go through basic training, you're being coached. You get out, you go to your AIT or your specialized training, your tech school. You get more coaching to learn better what your job is supposed to be, more nitty gritty. When you get out to your duty station, you've got a training officer to make sure that you stay up to date with your training. You're being coached. You're constantly learning. When you get out, same within in law enforcement or first responder, you have a field training officer. You learn the things in the academy, but then every person I've ever talked to, when they get out to the FTO says, forget everything you learned in the academy. I'm going to tell you how this really works, right? So you can go to college, you can take a class, you can go to a master course, all these things, but you need somebody to discern what's really important for you so that you don't try to reinvent the wheel. I wish I would have learned that early on, because I would not have been spinning my wheels all these years to understand the type of business that aligned with me, that I was good at, that I needed to focus on. So there are lots of ways to find coaches and mentors. There's free ones that are available through the SBA. It's called, it's not CORE. What is it? In my book, I talk about it. So if you want a free copy of my ebook, let me know. I'll get you a copy of it. But you can find free coaches. You can find paid coaches, and they're tiered, right? So you don't have to go to a $50,000 coach. Find one that's in your price range, because they're all going to teach you something you don't already know. That would be my advice, is keep getting help, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yep. And I will add, I think it's all about the network. Build your network, keep it strong. We've always had, my wife and I have always had the rule of, whatever it is should be no more than 2 phone calls away, regardless of what it is, right? And through your network, you should be able to hit that and reach for whatever. But that's the other critical piece.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's good. Man, I wish I would. Yeah. So to that, I will add, if you're a cop or you're in the military and you're looking to grow that network, don't just network with people that are in law enforcement. Don't just network with other 11 Bravos or avionics guys or just Air Force guys or whatever. Look into the other industries that you might be interested in, so that you can get to that second phone call away, or those 2 phone calls away, right? So have a very broad network. That's going to be very important to you if you're looking to get into business.
Absolutely. So, parting words.
God is good always. To touch on the faith part, but He has never ever let me down, and I've been in some pretty dark places. I've been months and months and months without income in my life several times, and out of the blue, somewhere money comes in right when I need it. It is amazing how good God is. So, parting words is prayer. Be involved. Get involved in prayer and have that personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
That is fantastic parting words. Couldn't agree more. And that is kind of, I mean, He's your strength, right? And He's your everything at the end of the day. When you're at the lowest lows or the highest highs, praise, and He'll do you right. That's what He does.
Absolutely. Yep. Never let me down, ever.
So, Patrick, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
For those out there, you can hit Chicken Dude stuff.com and you can get us. Outer Circle Foundation is our 501c3. We help veterans, active duty military veterans, first responders, PTSD awareness, resources and treatment, suicide prevention programs, career transition help. You can hit it all on the website and see what's happening. And we will be back for our next Chicken Dude stuff coming up in a little while. Patrick, thank you so much. If you ever need anything, make sure to reach out, and our network is open to you. We'll help you in any way we can.